Hi, this is Betsy Nelson, licensed clinical social worker, and I want to address the issue of memory recovery and its effects on daily life. So, when somebody's had a history of abuse, these memories are experienced by the brain as very traumatic, and they get stored in two different parts of the brain. They get stored, if we use this as a model of the brain, this would be the neural cord. This would represent the brain, the lower parts of the brain. The thumb would represent the middle regions of the brain, and from the knuckles forward would represent the cortex, or the thinking regions of the brain. And traumatic events get split in the brain so that the emotional memory is stored in the midbrain, and the videographic memory, just like what you're watching right now, sound and picture, but without emotion, gets stored over in a part of the cortex that's called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Those two parts of the brain don't have any way of talking to each other naturally. So when somebody, for instance, runs into somebody in public who had previously abused them, what will happen is that we do what Dan Siegel, a brain scientist at UCLA, calls flipping our lids. We go into a fight or flight response, and our cortex goes offline. And at that moment, we operate from the midbrain down to the body and back. That's a very quick loop. It's the loop that keeps us out of danger and eventually allows us to lift cars off of kids and do heroic things, but it's not operating through the thinking brain. And when we flip our lids, we often do so because something in the environment reminds us of something that's stored in our emotional brain. Now, the memories that are stored in the emotional brain have no chronology attached to them. And what I mean by that is that if I see somebody who causes me a lot of anxiety and brings up some traumatic past for me, the emotional memory of that traumatic past now comes into the present moment. I'm experiencing that emotion right here and right now. And this part of the brain doesn't know that this happened when I was 2 or 3 or 7 or 10. It thinks it's happening right now. And so this emotion piles onto the present moment and adds and enhances the present moment in a way that makes it more intense and more palpable. Once that emotion has emerged deep from the recesses of our midbrain, it's now active in our lives, and it will begin to trigger some of as we begin to calm down and get our brains sort of back together. Now those two parts of the brain can talk to each other, and it'll begin to trigger some of the videographic memory. So the feeling itself, once the brain has gotten back to more relaxed, will reach out to that part of the brain that has stored the videographic memory, and it will begin to have glimpses of that memory. So what happens when we've had this situation where things are going along just fine, and now something happens that triggers a traumatic memory, is that we are left with the echoes of that emotion living in our lives for as long as it takes for us to put that emotion and that videographic memory back together completely, to understand it, to be able to narrate it differently, and to be able to come to a place of peace and resolution around it so that it can then be put into a done file. That can take moments, days, months. It can take a long time. We aren't in control of how much time that takes. Other things can stimulate those memories and other associated memories coming up out of our emotional brain. It's not something that we have control over. All we can do is continue to work to put those memories together, the emotional memory and the videographic memory together, so that we can get beyond them. I hope that helps in understanding how trauma can continue to affect somebody's life in an ongoing way, day to day. Thank you.